Huh. Have you heard about this?
What's that?
I guess Christopher Nolan's new movie got a theatrical release last week.
Huh.
Should we go? We should probably go, right?
I guess...
Hold up! It looks like Mulan just came out on Disney+.
Oh, thank God.
But it's $30.
$30? How does that work?
I guess you pay $30 and they add it to your Disney Plus library.
Huh. How much cash do you have on you?
$8 and 35 cents. You?
All I have is a 10.
Check the couch.
Check the couch.
So that's $25.
So what do you want to do?
I guess we'll just see what we can get for $25.
Sure.
Excellent.
It is the distant year of 2020, and John Wick and some guy are in the throes of a shared midlife crisis. 30 years ago, George Carlin, may he rest in peace, told them that they would write a song so powerful, so excellent, so awesomely bodacious that it would literally save the world and lead to millennia of peace and prosperity. Yeah, they didn't. Now their marriages are failing, they perform weddings, and all of reality hinges on this song they couldn't be further from writing. Can time traveling to ask their future selves for the song help? I mean, in theory, at least according to the bootstrap paradox that these movies have followed in the past, but will the bootstrap paradox be enough? Find out when Bill and Ted face the music! Hello, folks! Welcome back to Cady and Katie. As you may very well have forgotten after so long, I am James R.I. Katie.
And I am Katie, of the Leaks.
And, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the movie scene this year has been kinda weird.
Like, really weird.
Yeah. And so, for a lot of that time, we weren't even seeing each other at all, let alone seeing movies together.
Mm-hmm. And now, of course, quarantines are lifting, and that's kind of going, But anyway, the point is, we're back, and taking precautions, hence the masks.
So, you guys didn't come here for, a lecture. You came here to hear our thoughts on Bill and Ted's triumphant return to the silver screen, Face the Music. Katie!
Yes?
What did you think of Bill and Ted Face the Music?
I quite enjoyed it. I have not rewatched the original two previously, but I was hoping that this was going to be pretty much what it was, and that was an enjoyable good time. James?
Yep.
How about you, sir? What did you think?
I did thoroughly enjoy it. Bill and Ted, the original two movies, were not movies that I watched a lot growing up. I'm not even sure I saw either of them in their entirety until I was legally an adult, at least. And since we watched this movie, I have gone back and rewatched the other two. Still delightful to this day. So dumb.
Good
but
dumb.
I love it. And this one really knocked it out of the park as far as I'm concerned in terms of following up the characters that we knew, but making up for the long period of time and how a lot of it doesn't make sense. We'll get into it further. But the point is, it had every opportunity to be terrible, and it was not.
So, Bill and Ted Face the Music is directed by Dean Parasot, not involved with the previous two movies.
Not that I can find, anyway.
Yeah, but most notably, the director of the cult hit Galaxy Quest.
Galaxy Quest.
Yes, which unfortunately I have not yet seen, but it's on my list.
I will fix that in the not-too-distant future. Yeah, I haven't seen Galaxy Quest in a while, but it's a cute little movie. Like I said, despite not being involved in the first two, the guy I mean, I don't know everything that being a director entails, but he obviously didn't do a shitty enough job that it affected the movie, because it was delightful.
I feel like what I know of Galaxy Quest 2 kind of lends to
It does.
the person who, was responsible for that having the right kind of energy, if that makes sense.
I mean, because it's a science fiction comedy, which is exactly what Bill and Ted is. Yeah. So, yeah, it wasn't really that surprising. Equally not surprising was that while the director was not involved in the first two projects, the writers were the same two guys who wrote Excellent Adventure, Bogus Journey, the TV show Excellent Adventures, and for the video game, even.
Good consistency, though.
Yeah, that's Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon. It very definitely shows that these guys have been around since the beginning of it. This movie was very clearly a labor of love by guys who created this universe in the first place, and everybody, viewer, everybody making the movie benefits from that. It was, yeah. So, I don't have a lot in the way of notes. Katie didn't even take notes because she's better at watching movies than I am.
Well, I was
but maybe not better at talking about them.
I was embodying the spirit of, just
Bill and Ted would not have
a
taken
cool
notes.
Dude who just wanted to, chillax and watch a movie.
Yep. So, no judgment, but I'll see if I can spawn some banter here. Oh, spoiler warning, obviously. I can't imagine why anybody would watch these without first watching the movie we're talking about, or at least knowing full well that they have no intention of watching it and they just love us for some reason. We should mention that in addition to the original writers, quite a few actors, most of the returning characters were played by their original actors. Obviously, Keanu and Alex Winter. Death was played by the same guy as he was in Bogus Journey, William Sadler. Ted's dad, played by Ted's dad. Hal Landon Jr., I believe is his name. Even Missy, that sort of like B-plot, C-plot, not even... She appears in the first two movies as just sort of like a joke. She's married to... What is it? In Excellent Adventure, she's married to Bill's dad. She was a senior when Bill and Ted were freshmen, and they asked her to prom. I'm not sure whether or not they ever indicate that she said no, but it's pretty clear that she said no. And then by the second movie, Bogus Journey, she's married to Ted's dad.
And,
And then this movie opens with the fucking wedding scene where she's now marrying Ted's younger brother, Deacon.
And of course, that's all, recounted as well.
Oh, yeah, they explain it with, stone-faced, we're just making a wedding speech here and explaining the history of this random character, who, by the way, my original point, is played by Amy Stotch, as she was in the first two movies. Now, notably, and there are a lot of reasons this could have happened, systemic sexism in the movie-making industry might be one of them. It might just be that they actually tried and they both said no, or maybe they just thought it would be funnier because they'd already recast them between the first and second movies to recast them again. But the two princesses, Elizabeth and Joanna, I want to say?
Yes.
Yeah. Are once again recast, as they were between Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey, by two significantly younger actresses. Both delightful actresses. They got, what's her name from Glee?
I can never remember her name.
Who I always recognize as Charlie from Heroes. Heroes' sort of love interest in the first season for 2 episodes. That was the first I ever saw that actress. And I'm currently rewatching Heroes for some reason because I hate myself.
I've seen that part of Heroes and I don't recall her from that at all.
She was like a waitress in a diner in Texas where Hero just randomly shows up.
Huh.
And she also has a power. She has eidetic memory. Not important.
Sorry.
The point is she plays one of the two princesses. Erinn Hayes was Elizabeth from Children's Hospital. And that whole sort of Stella, David Wayne.
Oh, that's why she looked familiar to you then.
Though actually, I don't think she was in any of the Wet Hot, which is stuff you're familiar with. She's one notable actress.
I've seen a good chunk of Stella.
But no, it's that group. Children's Hospital is what I'm talking about.
Oh,
She's a main character in Children's Hospital.
I've seen an episode or two.
Okay. What was that woman's name? I keep getting Diane Franklin. Nope, that was Excellent Adventure. Jayma Mays.
I never knew her name.
That is a made-up name. I don't really know why they decided to recast them.
I feel like for consistency's sake, if they got everyone else, the original who's been, the same throughout, they just had to keep up with the tradition of recasting.
We recast them already. We got to recast them again. It's a little bit weird knowing that both of these actresses are like 15 years Keanu and Alex's juniors, but it's also a movie about time travel, so maybe they keep going back and like getting the younger. I don't know. That'd be really skeevy in a lot of ways, but I'm not above it. If one thing I did notice rewatching Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey is that there are at least some bits that are done that don't really fly as well nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, that's true for most things.
Well, yeah, no, they're staples of, like, 80s teen comedies and things like that, so it didn't really bother me. I was just like there's the scenes where they're just, like, ogling Bill's stepmom, future best friend's sister-in-law, and they're just, like, you know, the boob thing, and they're just, whoa, and stuff like that, and it's just, not really making a point here. I just thought it was worth bringing up, because we were talking about recasting.
Recasting.
That is going to be fun to wade through to get something. We have 3 cameras now. I don't know if you guys noticed. We're still getting used to having our own cameras to talk to in addition to you guys, the viewer. And I forgot to turn my viewfinder around, so I have no idea what I look like, but I assume stunningly handsome. Now, I don't remember a lot of things, like specifics. I was sort of just taking the movie in and just writing anything that occurred to me. And so I don't remember what the context was, but there was definitely a moment, like a Matrix-y moment, where they're like on the phone and they like, we really need guitars. And they're like standing in I don't remember if it was actual void or just a big empty space.
It was I believe it was when they were in the future and they were in like that whatever the room was where they had that meeting.
Right, the future, yeah, okay.
And it was like, we need guitars, and then like a thing just like pops up like full of guitars.
Very much like the guns.
Lots of guns.
Probably, if not deliberate, someone on set was just like, we know, well, everyone's gonna think this.
Yeah, well, and I think that's probably one, for some reason, seems to be the one thing any movie that he has been in recently seems to kind of pull from.
We're not alone in the house, as is often the case. Even less alone than usual, actually.
Because even in John Wick, that was like the big, well, other than Lawrence Fishburne being in the movie, that was like the big reference they went for, was the guns, lots of guns. But anyway, that brings me to like my first big impression of the movie also was, of course, the most recent things that, you know, Keanu has been a part of has been, you know, the John Wick films and everything. So it took me a good, I don't know exactly how much time. It took me a little while to kind of disconnect that again and like, you know, just accept it for the fact that it's Bill and Ted once again.
Yeah, it's like you had to rewire your brain and like it's like uncanny valley of like seeing. It's like your brain almost thinks this is a completely different actor.
Well, the wedding thing, the wedding sequence was such a shocker, I guess, to start off with, because it was just such a disconnect from that character. But regardless, you know, by the time I did get used to it, and it didn't take away from the movie.
You know, it's actually fun to think about because for a long time, probably at least before The Matrix, and then I would argue, like, The Matrix was sort of like an island in the middle of a career of terrible movies that starred Keanu Reeves. For the longest time, most of us didn't consider him a good actor at all. Then John Wick happened, and everyone completely forgot all that other stuff because it's such a great movie, and he's playing the character perfectly. And to be fair, I'm still not sure that I believe that Keanu Reeves has a great range as an actor. He plays stoic badass pretty damn well. Even better now than he did back in Matrix.
He had a bit of a range in this movie.
And he apparently still plays stoner idiot very well. Which is funny because, like, some of his most notable bad movies, I'm thinking here of Dracula, of course.
Oh, yeah.
He delivers all of his lines like Ted when he really shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Like, he couldn't find the ground between stoic badass, and so and he's supposed to be doing a British, the whole thing, that movie's a mess. A lot of great stuff in that movie, but it's a bad movie.
It's terrible. Just
the commitment to the delivery of dialogue that has always been bad. From the very beginning of this thing. It was never meant to be taken seriously. It was always, these characters are just morons. Well-meaning morons, but morons. And it was one thing when they were, the actors, 25 and 24 when the first movie came out, where it's like, you don't even really think about it because that was sort of how, like, there was at least a subsection of the younger population that just, like, adults, that's how adults heard us speak, even if we weren't speaking that way. But now, the total and utter commitment by these, like I said, this one now notably respected actor, and Alex Winter, who Actually, I was looking into it. He actually has more directing credits than he does acting credits.
Oh, nice.
Which is not to say that he has a lot of directing credits.
Right.
But it's more than his acting credits. So it's nice to see that he's he hasn't just been like living in an alley until Keanu bailed him out when he agreed to do this movie. But like I was saying, just total commitment from full-fledged middle-aged adults to delivering lines
that were just ridiculous.
It's incredible to watch. Like how many takes must they have done, because everybody in the room just wanted to like burst out laughing.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I think that might have been part of the reason why the disconnect was as long as it was for me, at least, just because I was trying to like, they were so earnest and like sincere about it that it was so bizarre. There are certain moments I keep remembering specifically of that where they were talking to like death and stuff, where it's just like other people
You're
were like,
talking
in the background.
To the literal embodiment of death,
and like just people.
You
in the
can't
background.
say bodacious.
Clearly you can, dude.
Why is Death German? Why was Death German? Is the actor German, or was he just doing a German accent?
I don't know. I mean, it's a fantastic regardless.
It works. I thought it was funny.
But there's just so many moments in that movie.
And that's the thing, is it's like it'd be one thing if it was just funny, because I didn't expect that it wouldn't be funny at all, but I was worried that it was gonna lack a degree of self-awareness, or like there's so many ways that it could have sucked. But there were quite a few moments where I laughed out loud. Literally, I lulled.
You lulled?
I lulled.
You lulled.
I don't usually lull. I'm more of a quiet chuckler. But they're like, what was that freaking the robot from the future that was sent back to destroy them, that looked like a fucking live action Frieza?
Oh, he did.
In one of his various forms. I don't want to say which one because a bunch of nerds will call me out on it. But he was played by I don't remember the actor's name. Don't have it written down here. I'm not going to look it up. Victor Zsasz in Gotham, and also one of the, I believe, Russian or Ukrainian guys in Barry.
He, like, once his character sort of, like, showed up more and more, like, he was arguably well, they all were, but, like, the funny foil or whatever, like, he was hilarious.
Because, like his first real, like, obviously he shows up and he's this robot from the future and he looks super badass. And then, like, his first scene, he accidentally kills Ted's dad. And, like, after, like, he misses his target, shoots Ted's dad, and then, like, they just cut to him, and he's like, whoa. Like, he knows he fucked up. Not the kind of awareness you expect from a badass robot from the future. Not a lot of introspection from Terminators. There were just, it's a miracle that this movie worked the way that it did. And I think part of it was there was they knew how ridiculous this whole thing was. They knew how ridiculous it was back then. But now that these guys are in their middle age, what the fuck?
That makes sense. I'll allow it.
But now that these characters are adults and, like, just basically midlife crisis losers who have not evolved at all, they needed a degree of, like, they needed to know on some level that, from at least a certain angle, this movie is sad. At least at the beginning. Because, like, a lot, like, really, and honestly, if you follow Bill and Ted's story, as opposed to their daughter's story, which was really more of a classic Bill and Ted kind of tale, more like Excellent Adventure, but Bill and Ted's story is just going to the future and finding out that they suck more and more for like, the first 2 acts of the movie.
And then you say that too, where, like, they had their adventure and their daughters had, like, the classic, Bill and Ted adventure. It was the movie really was kind of like a melding of both of the previous ones, because then they do go to hell. Yep. And then that's when, death comes back into it. But it didn't feel like it was just another movie that was just like, oh, we're just going to rehash the originals, even though,
No, it felt like an homage as opposed to a ripoff.
I feel like it's a good time for this movie to have come out as well, because of, like, partly the nostalgic factor and partly just because, like, it's so positive. Yeah. Like,
yeah. I mean, we'll probably talk about the finale a little bit later. But I think that's an interesting point, is if they just made a movie about, I don't remember Bill and Ted's daughters' names, but I know that they were close to Bill and Ted. If they just made this movie about Bill and Ted's daughters going on an adventure and like Bill and Ted had been like side characters, it wouldn't have worked. It would have just felt like a shitty rehash, reboot, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the juxtaposition of these characters who are still young, they have their whole lives ahead of them, and they're going on a dumb adventure just like their fathers had 30 years ago, juxtaposed to Bill and Ted just like just becoming increasingly shittier. Not shittier people necessarily, but just like sadder.
Yeah, there were a couple iterations that were pretty shitty.
But then they end up they go to prison. They end up in prison at some point. You know, it's just like, what is happening here? It's that they know that this is sad to be doing this in your 50s. Both of those actors are in their 50s, but there's still that message of hope, as you said, and it's just like it worked way better than it should have, honestly.
I agree.
Should probably bring up the time travel thing, just because...
There was time travel?
No.
Oh, I didn't think so.
No, I have maintained for a long time that Bill and Ted, for all its silliness, actually has a pretty sound time travel model, and has since the very first movie. They use what's known as the bootstrap paradox. It's the same thing that you get in like Harry Potter, also a very airtight time loop. That has loops. Basically, you can't go back and change the past. You can go back and realize that things have happened. But you can also theoretically say, if we remember 2 days from now to come back in time and put a ladder that we need right now behind this bush, then it'll be there now. And it was. You know, and this movie continues to be relatively airtight. Because there's a lot of traveling to the future, it's a little bit harder to determine. There are a couple of moments where I almost thought that it was unraveling a little bit because... even if they managed to figure out this song thing, at least the system that they've been using this whole time means that they're still going to end up breaking into Dave Grohl's house and going to prison as part of, because they have to, because they can't not, because then who would they have talked to when they went to the future to find out about the song? And then, of course, the fact that the whole plot revolves around not just just saving the future, but like literally saving all of reality. Mm-hmm. There is now a space-time hole, which makes it a little bit harder because those cause all sorts of anomalies and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that they fucked up, but literally if they hadn't figured it out and done the song, then how would that future that they were talking to have happened? But again, space-time hole. Time, space? Space-time.
Space-time.
What's the traditional...
Time, space.
Space-time?
I think it's space-time.
I think it's space-time. Like,
yeah.
Space-time continuum? Time, space continuum? I don't know.
I'm trying to think of a movie. I don't think offhand that there's a movie I can think of where, I'm like, oh, well, the horrible time travel has ruined it for me. Well,
that's the thing, is like, well, as much as I care about shit like that, Back to the Future has a terrible time travel model. It makes no goddamn sense, but it's still a delightful film.
Yes. The time travel in this movie was pretty good. There are
these movies.
Yes, the instances too where it was like broken down and like characters were like just like discussing it was also very. I didn't understand.
Well, yeah, because there were moments of like characters getting like literally getting pulled out of their respective ages and dropped into different epochs. Epochs? I've never known how to pronounce that word. Eras, including Kid Cudi, played by Kid Cudi. An artist,
an expert in time travel.
Apparently. I only know who that guy is because I've watched all of Comedy Bang Bang, and he replaced Reggie Watts when Reggie Watts left the show for like half a season.
I don't know who he is.
That's fine. You need to watch Comedy Bang Bang. It's delightful and dumb. He often had like those weird moments of like talking about scientific stuff and things like that. So I'm wondering if that's like actually that guy's thing, or maybe they were also just really big fans of Comedy Bang Bang and decided to run with it.
Either way, honestly.
That's how he ended up in this movie. Was like, that's his bit is that he's really fascinated by time travel or something, and he approached them and was like, "Can I be in Bill and Ted?" I don't know. We did get to meet some more historical figures. Jimi Hendrix,
Louis Armstrong,
Mozart, random Chinese woman, who I assume is like a person from folklore, because they say something about like, I wasn't even sure she was real.
Yeah, a flautist.
Yes, a famous ancient Chinese flute player, and then a cave woman who's just really great at banging rocks together.
I want to say Graham, something like that.
They had the option of Neil Peart. And they were like, no, we need another woman.
Well, they kept going further back in time.
But they didn't have to.
I know, but they
could have just gone to Canada and gotten Neil Peart. YYZ, guys, come on. But that is something that sort of stuck out to me. And there's probably a reason, because, let's face it, up until fairly recently in human history, most famous musicians were men. Men of means. You know, before about... that mid-1800s? It was all Mozart, and other than, obviously there were folk musicians, and but there are less famous ones of them. So it almost felt, I'm not saying it was a problem, but I noticed it, that they start with Hendrix in an era where there were plenty of female options, sure. But obviously, the first thought I had when they were like, we got to go back and get musicians, was like, they're going to go get Hendrix, and then they immediately went and got Hendrix. And then there was Louis Armstrong. And then Mozart, but then it's like they were like, oh shit, these are all men. We need to do something. And so they whipped out their Chinese history book and they thumbed through. And again, I'm not saying it was a problem, but I definitely noticed that they felt kind of tacked on these two women, one of which was completely made up.
Yeah. Well, I feel like part of it too, like in thinking about it now, not so much just watching the movie at the time, but it seemed too like, you know, each time they'd go back, it was someone who had inspired the person they just picked up to some degree, because they were largely the one that like would interact with them when they got there. Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of part of the reason why I think they kept going back instead of.
Was that really a running theme, or was that just Hendrix and Armstrong? Because Hendrix didn't believe they were who
they
said they
were.
At
least interacted though, because Armstrong was the one who played. Well, he was. Oh no, it was Jimi Hendrix.
I don't picture Louis Armstrong like listing Mozart on his list of like inspirations.
Well, no. Jimi Hendrix played the guitar against him. It wasn't. Never mind.
I wasn't trying to call you out.
I misremembered, but. So. No, yeah, I guess not. I guess it was just kind of arbitrary, random historical things. The
movie was not without. Again, I'm not even saying problems. It was not without certain things that people might notice, but they're more than made up for as far as I'm concerned. Speaking of Louis Armstrong, though, I do have to. This is just a problem across the board with all of Hollywood, in that they do not understand how instruments work. Even otherwise fantastic pieces of film art can completely derail, for me at least, as someone who's been playing instruments for almost all of my life. When you see a guy playing the trumpet and his fingers aren't moving at the same time the notes are changing. Sherlock did it. Benedict Cumberbatch, a great actor, couldn't spend 20 minutes just learning the basics of playing violin.
Yeah, I mean, violin, especially for me, because I played it, like in elementary, middle school, but that is something I noticed too. String
instruments it's easily the most noticeable, because like the way that the sound is generated and the way the notes are changed are very deliberate. And here's the thing: is I think they can get away with it because I know that I'm biased because I'm so familiar with these instruments. So maybe it's not a problem for most non-instrumental people, which is why they keep getting away with it. But I mean, you've never seen Master and Commander? Great film. But there are a couple of scenes where frickin' Vision and Russell Crowe.
Vision?
Yeah,
Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany, the guy who's in all the Russell Crowe movies for some reason.
Huh. I know.
They're rocking out on a cello and a violin, and it's just so wrong.
The only things I know about that movie: Russell Crowe, Billy Boyd, and the meme. No, that's not. That's from.
Paul Bettany's like the second most important. That's not from
Master and Commander. That's from a different movie. So yeah, that's the only two things I know.
Well, now you know three. Paul Bettany's in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've rambled on about that enough. I think it's time for us to get to the finale.
The finale.
The big finale.
The big world-saving, time re-raveling finale.
Well, see, yeah, as we were approaching it, they were hyping. It was this song that was going to save not just the future, but all of reality. The future, the past, basically everything covered by that angry sludge. But we're approaching this, and we're like, oh, it's going to be this great piece of music, and it's going to blow our minds. And I was like, you guys are really setting yourself up for like to fuck this up from a movie making standpoint. And all I could think of was like, I don't know if you've ever seen Mr. Holland's Opus. A decent enough film. But the whole point, like the big finale, is that he finally finishes writing this big piece of music he's been trying to write for a long time, and the whole movie is about how his life experiences like feed into his conduction, his composing, and then the piece sucks ass. Not in the universe of the movie.
But
in the movie, it's hailed as a beautiful piece of music or whatever. But it was bad. There were electric guitars in it. He was an orchestral conductor, and there were fucking electric guitars. It sucked so bad. My high school band teacher would rant about how pissed off he was at that movie.
Fantastic.
Similarly, they were building up to this song that was supposed to unite all of reality.
Yeah, and they played like a tiny little piece of it too, as like the little sneak sort of thing when they finally like met up with their older selves who knew about the song. And I also was kind of worried about.
Are we sure that's what that was, and that wasn't like some guitar riff from a Dave Grohl song?
Fair,
they were in his house, so they just like they took his iPod that he left next to them.
I mean, at that point,
I'd have to go back and look, and then listen to a lot more Foo Fighters and Nirvana. Anyway, but the point is they were building toward this, and then we finally got to it, and it was not mind blowing. Which, as we were approaching, I was concerned, but then when it happened, I was like, well, actually, there's a precedent. First of all, the other two movies also ended with big, hokey, sort of, not mind-blowing, just kind of silly, like, triumphant,
feel-good
worse than We Are the World, those kind of songs. But then, like, I had time to think about it a little bit, and it actually was kind of perfect, because, unlike in the other two movies, they make it very clear that the point was not about the song itself. Mm-hmm. It was about uniting the world in making music. So the music didn't have to be good, but everyone was like, it was like Hands Across America, but with instruments.
And the world.
And the world. And all of
time.
Did we see any aliens in this movie?
I don't think so.
I was like, I'd forgotten that there were aliens in Bogus Journey until I rewatched it.
I'm pretty sure no.
I say aliens, but really there are two aliens that are actually one alien named Station. When you first meet them, they're two, and then they fuse into one. I'm a little shocked in retrospect that we didn't at least see those aliens. Mm. And again, I'm not saying for sure that we didn't, I just don't remember.
Maybe they were in hell, like in the background or something.
So, well, why would they be in hell? They should be in heaven. That's where Bill and Ted meet them. But, yeah, it was actually kind of a clever workaround, because, let's be honest, these guys were never going to write that song. But uniting people through, excellence and partying on is far more believable and actually kind of a better message. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't require actual excellence to just not be a shitty person.
Yep.
You can be bad at everything, just be nice. Which is kind of the perfect tagline for Bill and Ted's whole existence.
Yeah.
They're well-meaning dumbasses.
Shockingly hard to be a nice person, though, apparently, these days. Well, any days, honestly, but I think by the end of the movie, when it gets to that point, when you realize that's what it is, and it's everything, I think it made the movie better, just because it was
I would agree.
such a...
It sort of plays into that self-awareness that I was pitching as being so vital to making this movie not suck.
Yes, and it did not suck.
Yeah. So it's probably pretty obvious at this point, but Katie, would you recommend this movie to, say, some random person?
I would absolutely recommend this movie.
Have you recommended this movie to some random person?
I have.
I've been shouting it at people all week.
Yeah, I actually, a couple times at work...
Right in their face. Go watch Bill and Ted!
A little intense, but fair.
If it works.
Yeah, a couple of times at work I've been like, hey, did you ever watch the Bill and Ted movies? And one person hadn't, so I told her to go watch all of them. But I've gotten a couple people to be like, oh, that came out? All right, I'll totally check it out. And you should, because it's great. James?
Yep.
Would you recommend Bill and Ted?
No.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. Oh, it's very, very obvious that I would. Like I said, I've been shouting in people's faces all week.
Literally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've been arrested at least twice. It's crazy.
Worth it.
One question I always try to ask myself when I'm answering this question is, would I recommend it to just someone who's not at all familiar with Bill and Ted? And I can't say for sure. Mm. I still think it's delightful, but I also, even going in, even though I'd only seen them like once, a decade ago, I had a vague enough recollection of what Bill and Ted were that, like, when you see George Carlin, I was like, oh, it's Rufus. But if you've never seen them before, knew nothing about them, there might be elements of this movie that don't work for you. Mm. But I can't say for sure.
I feel like it gives enough of the usual like backstory that movies tend to, so like a new viewer could kind of at least get the basics. From
a plot standpoint, it's probably a little confusing, but in terms of humor, I think if at least if you have a similar sense of humor to us,
I think you could enjoy it even if you didn't know anything about Bill and Ted. So, that said, you should probably go watch all three because they're enough. They're culturally relevant enough that it would enrich your brain.
Yes.
So on some level.
Yeah. And even though when I first heard that it was a thing that was happening, I was worried.
So worried.
Like I saw the first little teaser trailer, and I was like, okay, that might be fine. And I mean, I was going to see it regardless, just because of my love of the previous movies. But yes, very good. Would recommend.
Be good. It's been so long. How did we used to close these things?
It was something about do not forget to something.
Lork? I want to say Lork.
I think it was totally Lork. Do not forget to Lork, to combat, and to prescribe.
That sounds right.
Totally right. And of course, if you enjoy the videos, tell all of your friends. And if you would like to help us continue to make videos or make them better, you can support us on Patreon. I think the website called Patreon.
Yeah, something like that. In any case, as we once were, we are Cady and Katie, reminding you all to stay safe out there, and of course, be excellent to each other.
And party on, dudes.